Hi friends, this is Caitlin, and today we are celebrating a Sweet November Stamps new Christmas release. I'm going to be using these Christmas minis that are so stinking cute, as well as some circle dies to make a really fun ornament themed card. So this is part of a YouTube hop that's happening today. Well, it's happening for the next couple days, and it gets you a chance to win the entire new release. So check down in the description for all of the details, but let's go ahead and jump into this card. So I started by outlining my circle dies on my Copic Express It paper with a pencil. This helps me know that I'm stamping my image in the right spot, and also helps me when I'm coloring in the rest of my image to know that it's going to be within the area I'm using, so I'm not kind of wasting time coloring outside or not coloring enough, and then you die cut it and you end up with gaps. That's the worst. So I repeated that process with that sweet little snowman. And I'm going to start by coloring in Santa and Mrs. Claus because a lot of their colors are going to be the same. And these are so teeny tiny little cute stamps that it was really easy to kind of just pop back and forth between them. I think that these would be great for like little tags. You could use a bunch of them on a card. I saw Sylvie did something that was so cute. She made like a shaker, and it's like Santa sneaking down the string of an ornament. It was really cute. You can check out her Instagram. I'll leave it down in the description if you haven't seen it. It's really sweet. But yeah, so I used some cool grays for Santa's beard and Mrs. Claus's hair. There's some really great artist drawn lines already in there for us, so it made it really simple to kind of know where to add your shading. And I just kind of follow those artist drawn lines and then add some extra little shadows and flicks anywhere where one area overlaps another. So like behind the bow, in between some of those little like rolls in her hair. For Santa, it's kind of like emphasizing more under his little mustache and then kind of breaking up some of that color from the bottom of his beard as well. But yeah, this is such a cute release in general. I like that a lot of the images look very different to things that I've seen available, which is something I think Sweet November does really well all the time. For the other white elements on both of them, I decided to bring in some neutral markers just so the gray would be a little different. It's not really drastic, and I used it very sparingly. We went in with some N1 and like N0. It was very minimal because I still want it to look white. For Santa's sweet little face, I went with kind of my normal go-to Caucasian skin tone. So a little E04, E11, E00, and then a little bit of E000 right through the center. I really wanted to keep his face nice and bright. And then of course he needed his rosy cheeks. So we had to bring in some R20. For his accessories, we went with brown instead of black. That's just a personal preference, but I really like the warmth that brown, like boots and gloves and belt, bring with the red everything else. But I've seen a lot of people color them black. For my red, I decided my kind of go-to Christmas reds are usually the same pretty much every year. I go with R59, 29, and then usually a little bit of 27. I think that makes a really beautiful, kind of bright, traditional Christmassy red. And I'm adding the shadows on his hat kind of underneath the little like part that flops over. And then on either side of the kind of cone shape. And then I left a little highlight all the way around on the outer edges, and then filling that in with that lightest shade just really helps to make it pop and look like it is very rounded. I use the same exact skin tones and reds and everything for Mrs. Claus, but she's also going to get some green accents, which we'll bring in again on our snowman. I thought it was kind of cool to have like each of them have something in common, but not everybody is the exact same. Because if they were like an ornament set that you bought as a set, they would be kind of coordinated, but that doesn't mean they'd necessarily be a perfect match. That was my thinking anyway. For her, again, same thing. I'm keeping her highlight a little lower just because with Santa I didn't have an option, right? Like the only part we see is kind of his forehead. But her highlight is a little lower on her cheeks. She gets the same reds for her dress, and her bow and then that bottom band are gonna be white, but that little collar part, or like almost like little capelet shawl thing that she's wearing, is gonna be green. Like I said, just to kind of change it up. And I love the addition of this bow. I think it's just so sweet, and I love coloring bows. I don't know what it is about bows, but they just make me really happy to color. So starting with my shading in the center and the outer edges, and then kind of trying to keep that highlight through the middle part of each of those like bow loops where that would be kind of facing us the most. She gets brown shoes as well. And then here's where I'm bringing in that green. I'm trying out a different green because I never find a green that I absolutely love. And this one is pretty cute. We'll use it again in a second on the snowman, like I said. So for my snowman, I decided to make his snow blue. Sometimes I'll also do like gray, but there was already so much gray happening with Santa's beard and Mrs. Claus's hair that I didn't want that to be the shading on my snowman. So I brought in some super pale blues, gave him his little orange carrot nose. Sorry, guys. He needs his little black Frosty the Snowman top hat, right? So this time I brought in some cool grays, which kind of nods back to Mr. and Mrs. Claus's hair without it, again, being super matchy because it's darker. Then I'll bring in that G28 again, and I'm doing a red and green striped scarf. That's the word, scarf. And the holly on his hat, the holly leaves. So we'll shade in most of that space now with the G5 and then a little G14, just again to kind of wake it up and bring some fun and brightness to it. The same red combo as before, going with that 59, 29, 27. And yeah, I think this just looks so cheerful. But I also love that he doesn't have to be super Christmassy. Like you could give him a blue and purple scarf and he'd still be so sweet. So once they were all colored up, I die cut them with that circle. And then I wanted to add some kind of bubble shading that would help them look like they're in round ornaments. So I started with my C5. I skipped over Santa because he was kind of my experiment. So when I got to my snowman, I had an idea of what I was actually going to do. So I started with C5, just kind of making some broken up curved lines. Then I connected them with C3. Then I connected them even more and spread them out and like pooled them, made them longer and wider with that C1. And then to give it that like true shine, I brought in my B000 and just kind of, again, really pulled that color out. And I love the way that the blue works with those cool gray markers. And then to make it look less shadowed and more shiny, I went over the darkest parts with my white gel pen, not covering everything, but just it breaks up that dark line enough that to me it looks like a beautiful shine mark. So then I went in with my a super light E marker, kind of mapping out where I want my branches of my tree to be so that I know where my ornaments are going to sit. So my E51 was just kind of like my outline for this. And I'm just going to start. This is a very, I'm not an expert tree colorist. So if I can do this, I promise you can do this. But I wanted to show you my favorite way to draw pine needles. The first card project I ever made with Sweet November stamps as a guest designer was ornaments on a tree, and I tried pine needles for the first time then. I'd never seen anyone do them. I haven't really seen many people draw them up close since. So I don't know if there probably is other and better ways, but I love how my first card came out. And so I've just kind of been perfecting it since then without any outside influence, just trial and error. So I started by drawing in my branches, and because I want it to look like the needles are covering part of it, I left the bottom shadow like really blotchy. And so I'm starting out with my BG99, and I'm just starting on each side of the branches and just kind of flicking, but these are really big dramatic flicks. Okay, you can see I'm really taking up a lot of space, and then I even go back and add in some kind of where they overlap in the middle where there could be a branch, and we'll just draw in our own little branch there to kind of fill in all of that white space. But again, you can see I'm not being very particular about where exactly these are going. You just want them flicking out and kind of forward from each branch, if that makes sense. And I manipulate my paper so much when I do this. Here's where you can see I'm adding in a couple more little spindly branches. These don't need the extra shading because they're really skinny and kind of like little filler branches in our tree. But this is basically going to give the effect that we zoomed in and are just looking right at our tree and our little ornaments tucked in, versus like, a regular look at a tree where you're seeing the whole tree in a room. But I love this. So to me, the trick is having a mix of branch kind of widths and a mix of green colors for your pine needles. That's what, in my mind, makes like one of these scenes come to life. So I have my different sized branches already. We're going in still with that BG99 just to kind of get a base. And you just want to fill in. You don't have to fill in the whole thing. You could definitely leave some white space, especially if you were going to stamp your sentiment directly. But you can see it's looking good, but she's still pretty sparse. So bringing in the other greens is where we kind of start to chip away at that white space. And again, like I said, it really brings the scene to life for me. So the second color I brought was the G29. It doesn't have to be this green combo. I've switched up green combinations pretty much every time I've ever done this. I just like a combination of a BG, a G, and a YG. I don't even know if I ended up using YG on this one, but they make beautiful additions to like a YG99. And you just want to kind of fill in between the flicks that you did the first time. And some of them can overlap. Some of them can be in between. You want ones coming from each branch to overlap. That's what's going to take away that white space. But this is really like beautiful chaos. So if you're a very clean and neat colorist, this might be a little bit challenging for you at the beginning, but I promise the messier and crazier it looks, the better your end result will be, because inside a pine tree is crazy. There were also some spots where I felt like the highlight of my branch was a little too bright. It contrasted too much. So I went over some of that with this G94 just to kind of tone it down, where you can still see that it's tan, and you can still see that it's the highlight, but it's not quite so like golden. And I like how that kind of brought a little more cohesion to everything as well. I really wanted to kind of fill in this, what will be the right-hand side of our card too. So I kind of shaded that in and then just pulled color all the way across, like from that point. So we would have like a solid green on that side. And that is our little tree ready to go. So once I placed my ornaments back in the general place that I had them when I, drew my branches, I went in with a black pen and my little T-square ruler to make sure that their ornament strings were kind of nice and straight. And I am going to add little ties and like a second little wrap as if they're kind of wrapped around. Just the single line looked a little like naked to me. I don't know. You could add little bows. You could make it a thicker black line. That would probably also kind of help. But I didn't really want to distract from them, so I thought that this was a cute way to kind of hang them there. You could also do like a gold, if you have one of those like gold glimmer pins or something, that would be really cute. Yeah, so I popped up my little ornaments with my foam tape. I just thought that would be cute to kind of separate them out from the tree a little bit if I went through all that trouble of die cutting. You could also put circle masks on your paper while it was still white and do all of your kind of branch work over them and take off the masks and stamp your images inside and have this be a 1-layer card. That would also be an option. I added a white heat emboss sentiment that I borrowed from Purple Onion Designs because it was super cute and fit the theme. And then I popped up this layer onto my red base layer that measures for an A2 5.5 by 4.25. And then this whole thing will just get popped onto a card base. And just to break up some of that space in between the ornaments, I decided to go in with some little pearls. I love this set because some of them are huge, like comparatively, right? And then some are like a medium and some are pretty tiny. So I just thought this kind of helped enhance the idea of like little baubles, little ornaments all over the tree, or maybe like it's garland. I don't know, but that brings our card together. I hope that this one makes you so happy. Please check out the other videos in the hop, and all of the details for that will be down in the description. I hope that you have the most amazing day, and until next time, happy crafting.